So don't worry about it. I'll have to be extra careful, but it shows me. So for like Chris's one that looks so weird, it shows Chris's submission, and then in the drop-down list, the next one is Isaiah's. So I'll be able to find everything, and it's set to give you a unique grade, but it might look weird for those assignments, but it is the group thing, and it won't let me change it once anybody's submitted one. So we'll just have to deal with it. I'll check and hope it didn't do that to the online class. Can't talk to them quite as easy. Make sure I'm sharing. All right, we should be zooming. Okay, so for our left and right arrow, what we're going to do is put those in buttons so that our buttons say next and previous, and then have the little arrow beside them. It's an indicator, you know, because we all love images. But in this application, we're going to have a few things show up. So for our first effort here, we are going to create this button demo. We want some JavaFX programming text to show up at the top, and our left and right buttons are going to move that text around on the screen. So that's what those buttons will do. So to create our text, we're going to create it as a class level item. Let me get zoomed in here. So right under our class statement, I'm going to put a comment. Is our class level or instance variable. And this one's going to be protected. What does protected mean? Can get to it from this class. Any class in the project? Let's double check. Protected access modifier in Java. Oh, okay. Now when we use protected, protected can be accessed only by the subclasses in other packages or any class within the package of the protected members class. So those packages can kind of cause some confusion. What do I need, Chris? Where is it?
You have a public void start override. Well, no, that's, you're doing this class level, so that would be outside of it.
Yeah, it's outside of it. I haven't got there yet. So I want to create this text field that's going to be global. It's going to be a new text field, and we want it to be 50 by 50, and we want the text to say JavaFX programming. Or something that you like. Now, before we actually get to our start method, we're going to create another method. So we're going to get into some object-oriented stuff here. Let's create a protected method that returns a border pane, and we're going to call our method getPane. Looks like with all those imports, I'm still missing one. So I'll add in my import for javafx.scene.layout.borderPane. So in our method, we're going to build a pane, and then we're going to return it so that we can have it be used. So in our pane, we're going to start out with an HBox. This is going to be our pane for buttons, so we'll know what we're going to do with it. Now let's create our buttons. We're going to call these BT left, because remember they said that buttons should have a prefix of BT. It's going to be a new instance of the button class. Its text is going to say left. But then we're going to add an image to it. So we'll go down to the next line like they do in the example. We're going to create an anonymous image view. And our anonymous image view is going to use an anonymous image from our images library. Now I named my images library with an uppercase I, so I'm going to make sure to put that uppercase I in my path. And then mine is left arrow.png. So yours will be named differently depending on what you got. I'm going to Alt-Enter on the button import and add in the JavaFX scene control button import. Hopefully we won't have too many. Now I see a typo right there in my left arrow file name. I'll fix that, hope for the best. So that's going to be our left button. Let's create our right button. BT right. Now the first parameter is going to be our text. We want this button to say the word right. And we want to add our image in an image view. And I'll get my right arrow.png. One thing that's a pain with these JavaFX programs is it's hard to test them as we go, you know, because each of the components is so dependent on the other pieces. So sometimes we could go ahead and add in our stage and everything, but not with this one. We kind of have to get it all in there before we can do much. So now that we've got our buttons created, let's update our pane for buttons. And we want to do a get children. And with our get children, we want to do add all. And what we want to add is our buttons, BT left and BT right. Now with our pane for buttons, let's go ahead and set our alignment. And we want it to be, where'd that go? In the center. One more, pane for buttons, set style. And we'll pass in some style information. We want our FX border color to be green. When we've been doing all this JavaFX stuff, we've been using the JavaFX classes. There are lots of different ways we can do it. I'm sure you guys have found that as you've been looking for videos and things. So next time as we finish up, we'll talk about some of those other options. So let's create another border pane. This one is going to be named pane. In our pane, let's set our bottom to be our pane for buttons. So then those should be across the bottom of this new border pane. One more pane. This pane is going to be pane for text. And this one, let's do our get children. And for this one, we want to just do an add because we just have the one thing. We want to add our text field to this pane. We're going to update our border pane that's holding everything to say that in the center, we want this pane for text. to be added. Now let's set up our action events. For our left button, we're going to do the set on action. And we're going to use the really compressed lambda expression. So remember, everything has to be totally default. But when that action event occurs, we want to run the set A method. Set X as method. I need new glasses. Like, what's an A? Our set X method. We're going to do text.getX to get our current value of X and then subtract 10 from it. So that should move that to the left. And then for our right button, our set on action, same sort of thing. We're still going to be setting X because we're going sideways, right? And we want to do a get X and then add 10. Finally, when we're all done here, we can return this pane to our caller. So however much commenting you want, our action events, we'll move the text. Right there. Did that do it? Are you missing it?
No, you're right.
Is it? Sometimes it seems backwards. Okay, so now since we've done all this building in this method, our start method should be nice and small, just like we like, right? So let's do our @ override. And we want this one to be public. Pass our stage. So all we need for this one then is our scene. It's going to be a new scene. And in our parameters, we're going to run our getPane method to create that pane that we want in our scene. And then we're going to specify the size. Now, really all we need to do is set our title. And we'll just have it say button demo. Our primary stage, we want to set our scene to be our scene. And show it. I'll update my main to do that launch. And see if you've got something. Leave mine here for a second while everybody's finishing. So this one's really neat because it kind of reminds us that we can do methods and get a lot of stuff done. And then we could reuse them. Let's try it. How's it work?
Such big pictures.
It what?
So mine looks funny. My pictures are a lot.
Are they
bigger than
huge?
pictures.
Oh yeah, mine are giant.
If you make the screen larger though, it still works. Or that still works, yeah.
Make it full screen.
Yeah.
There we go. Mine are full screen size arrows.
Yeah.
And my text is very small. So it's moving. Yeah, I would definitely have to get better pictures. I was going to use this. And of course, that zip file that has all the images is loaded to Canvas if you want the correct little pictures that they use. But that's no fun. So we'll just get them all. So everybody's working?
I've got more.
Oh, okay. Well, let me show you that.
Find out where you got those JPGs from, or PNGs.
We just went on Google and searched for
Okay, and I gotta,
left arrow and right arrow. So we'll find you some.
and I gotta create a folder called images.
Inside that project.
Oh, this is mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that probably did, because that's probably what it was yesterday, but.
How does spell style? Is it set as well? Okay, it's the same.
There's one running already.
Yeah. That's a problem.
Yeah, I'm very much like that.
I was thinking about children. Like, I know some kids. Oh.
This way. So that's adding our buttons to that border thing. And then these 3 lines should already be there. I think I already have them.
Oh, I should.
Name, date, program, purpose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Name, date, program,
I think oh, yeah. Oh,
Once I just line for the year, it was
I did gifts for the like you get play. Oh, yeah. So many it's static.
So it's saying I was missing a stupid.
I just took I opened gift yes. Geometry yeah, still. Oh,
Oh, that page.
No, that's not, yeah. The border around the.
Okay, now I have to
And no, the C.
Oh, okay.
For whatever reason, it's not like. It keeps telling me that.
that's like right.
And the only thing I did think of was I didn't have to change the password yesterday. But I changed it here. Yeah, because it didn't connect first.
So it actually popped up and told me.
Yeah, it didn't connect to the mission. It let me do it again. Push roll pull it.
Mine's pretty good.
To update this on the other.
It's not really good. I really don't want to bring it because I like ground.
Change it here again, just to make sure. I need to get. So I'll take it out.
Your stuff right here. Everybody else inside is
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Oh, wait, actually, maybe, yeah. I think some of my personal I had it on a flash drive too, but then I accidentally formatted
it. See if you can push it now. Those errors just get crazy.
Could you show me where you can put the pictures?
Uh-huh, sure. So we just created, if you go to your project, right click on your source packages and click add new package. And then we just made that package named images. Oh, okay. You got it in there, huh? Right here. So images should match your package name. I don't think I should have it uppercase, but I do. Okay, let's extend this thing. We're going to add some checkboxes, and then we'll see what we can do with it, because these things matter. Okay, now this one is going to be just a little bit different, but we're going to try to copy some code back and forth. So to start out, let's create a new project so we don't mess this one all up. And I want to name this project listing 16_3. In our main class, this is going to be checkbox demo. Now, a lot of the imports that we've had in our other projects aren't really going to help us much with this one. Get my mouse over there. So let's see if we can. Hang on just a sec. Let me look at something here. All right, this one is just a little bit different. Sorry, Ravel is making me unsure. You're already doing it. You're great. Okay, so our imports that we're going to need. Event dot action event. Event dot event handler. Geometry dot insets. Scene dot control dot checkbox. Scene dot layout dot border pane. JavaFX dot scene dot layout dot vbox. Scene dot text dot font. Scene dot text dot font posture. And lastly, scene dot text dot font weight. For our buttons here, our checkboxes, whenever we're working with checkboxes, remember we always assume that people can select more than one of them, right? Because a radio button is the one where we could only select one. If we have the little circles, but a checkbox, we can select more than one. Excuse me, getting choked up here. So the reason I wanted to do these ones, do them kind of together, is because they extend each other. So that button demo that we just got done, we're going to use that as our base class for this listing. So we're going to extend button demo instead of extending application. Button demo, if you remember, extends application. Well, now we don't have it, so let's find that class file, that .java file, in your 16.2 project. You should be able to find your button demo, and we should be able to copy. Now, when we copy that button demo.java file, we want to paste it into our package. And let's go ahead and refactor it so that it creates the new project name if it needs to. I don't think it should need to change anything. It's like I'm all confused. Okay, I'll just tell it to do it without refactoring.
Mine seemed to work, so.
Did it finally get in there? I had to keep clicking it, but it finally went. So now in our new project,
Yeah, I actually right-click.
we should have our button demo Java file from our previous project and our new checkbox demo Java file from this project. We're also going to need to copy that images package down because we want those images, because we know our button demo is dependent upon those images. So we should be able to copy that package. And I click on copy. And then I want to paste that on my source packages because I don't want it inside that other one. I want it beside it. And there's my images then. That work?
Click on it, do the same thing, right click, copy. Now do the folder, the whole image folder. You don't have them in an image folder. Yeah, you'll just have to rename them if you have that other one working the same way. No. You however.
I lost you.
Where
you at?
Here, by going however you access, right?
Yeah.
Your other one, you're gonna have to access it the same way.
Okay.
Because they're slightly different. Yeah. Oh, that's the one we got. Yeah. No, that was from the copy over in there.
Okay, so that was so now we need to pictures.
Yeah,
Whenever
where'd
you
they
find
go?
it.
I quickly. So I only have two listing.
Oh, okay, let's.
Where did they go?
I see, or which is button demo.
Yeah. Because one of them's actually linked into the other.
Let's do it in this project.
Okay.
Direct.
I thought they were all linked to the checkbox. Why do I get two?
If you know which one is from the other one,
This one are images.
then you can close that one out. You don't need it open.
Now put those pictures. You can put them in there.
Yeah, that's funny because
Try that.
okay, now.
Get that in the one.
As a matter of fact, I still have it.
Somewhere it's there, huh? Yay. Okay, so when you think about what our button demo does, remember our button demo starts out, it calls this method that builds the pane. So remember, it builds a whole border pane, and we have our text kind of in one area of our border pane. We have our buttons down on the bottom. So we're going to be starting out with all of that stuff basically done, right? Because we're extending that button demo project. So let's see what we need to do. First of all, we are going to override our start method. Oops, lied. We're going to override our get paid method from our button demo. So it's just lying to you. Now that was a protected method, and remember to override. We'll just do it the same way. This is going to be a new border pane, but it's going to run our get pane method from our button demo. Border pane, okay. Is that better? It's happier now. Now in this method, the first thing that we're going to do is set up our border pane. Let's name it pane. And we're going to run our superclass method, get pane. It's a really good chance for inheritance finally. Now, once we run that class method that we're inheriting from, again, we should have that built pane. So let's add some font information to it. We haven't done much with fonts. So our checkboxes are going to allow the user to apply different fonts or font characteristics to the text, like make it bold or make it italic. So for the first font, we're going to set up a font that is bold and italic. So we're going to use the font library, font method, and we're going to specify our font is going to be Times New Roman. Ugly, I know. And then we're going to have some more font information here. Our font weight, GHT, will be bold. And our font posture will be italic. It will be leaning over sideways. That's why it's its posture, right? And it'll be a 20-point font. So now if we want to apply that to our text, we'll have this built already, this font that we can just apply to that text. Now we need a few more though, because we want to give our users some choices. So let's create a font that is font bold. We'll run the font method in our font class, and we'll say that again, it's Times New Roman. We would like our font weight to be bold, but we want our font posture to be regular. Again, it'll be a 20-point font. Okay, we have two more, so I'm going to copy this font bold. And this one is going to be font italic. So in our italic font, our font weight will be normal instead of bold. And our font posture will be italic instead of regular. Now on top of that, our last one is going to be font normal. To be Times New Roman, our font weight will be normal. and our font posture will be regular. Finally, now that we've set up all these fonts, we can update our text and set its font to be our font normal. We want to start out with that no bold, no italics font, and then let them change things. So we set up all these fonts just to support our checkboxes, because they decided that giving the user checkboxes to choose which font they want is going to be a great way to handle it. So now that we've got our font properly set, let's work on creating the checkboxes. Now our checkboxes are going to go into a VBox. That's just what they've decided, that they should be displayed vertically. We're kind of used to seeing checkboxes displayed that way. This VBox is going to be named pane for check boxes. And it's a new VBox of 20. Couple of properties, pane for checkboxes. We want to set the padding. And we're going to use new insets of 5, 5, 5, 5. Now in our pane for checkboxes, let's set our style. And we're going to do that FX border color of green. They really like that. You can change it if you want to do something different. Okay, now our checkboxes. They are the checkbox class. Our prefix is going to be CHK. We're going to have one checkbox for bold. It'll be a new checkbox, and our text property on that text box will say bold. Now we're going to have another checkbox, check italics, or italic. And its text is going to say italic. Looks like my insets import is missing. So I'm going to Alt-Enter to add that back in. Now let's add those checkboxes to our pane. It was pane for check boxes. And do our get children. And we're going to do an add all. And we're going to add our check bold and our check italic. Finally, we're going to add that to our main pane, our border pane, and we're going to set it to the right. And it's going to be our pane for check boxes. Now for our event handlers, we are going to have a little bit more than we did for our left and right arrow buttons, but not much. I'm going to put a comment or two in here. Set up check boxes. So now notice, if you would, that since we use those Lambda expressions, our event handlers for our buttons are in that class, right? Now we're creating our event handlers for these checkboxes, and they're going to end up in this class. That makes sense because that's where those components live. They're in those classes. But think about, as a programmer, how challenging it might be to find all of those things. But we're going to create an event handler for this one, a little bit more involved. Since we're not taking all of the defaults, we have to specify that it's an action event instead of an event handler. So that's the one thing that's making us not be able to use that really compressed Lambda expression. In this one, though, we can be pretty compressed. We are going to have to specify that our event handler is named E. Notice in the last one where we were just taking total of defaults, we didn't have an opportunity to name that event handler. Just said it was E. So probably the same in the end. Okay, our check bold, if it is selected. Now, a checkbox, remember, is going to be a little bit different than a button, because a button can be clicked, right? That's the only thing it can be, that one state. But a checkbox could be selected or deselected, right? So those are different events. So that's all right. We'll just be checking for the scene if they're selected. So we want to know if the check bold box is selected and the check italic is selected. Then we want to do our method that sets both of them. That was, for our text, we want to set the font to be font bold italic. Now we'll add some else if structures here. Else if our check bold is selected, in our text, we want to set the font to be font bold. Another else if. This time, if it's just the check italic that is selected, then we want to update our text font to font italic. Finally, if nothing's selected, we want to do normal. So our final else will be text.set font to font normal. Finally, I need to finish my Lambda expression with my closing semicolon. That should get rid of that error. I'm going to put curly braces around my else clause because all of the others have it. Just want to make sure I don't mess that up. So once we've got all of this stuff built and our action events created, let's check bold dot set on action, our handler. And the same for our check italic. Finally, we're ready to return this pane to the caller because we have everything in it. It's kind of a long, stringy way of inheritance, isn't it? Because we're not really just like benefiting. It's just like this class is going to create this chunk, and this class is going to create this chunk. So it does give us a way to look at inheritance, but I think you guys could probably come up with a better way. I'm going to go down to my main and launch this thing.
Yeah, you forgot the binary stage stuff.
Do what?
You probably like do the whole show thing.
The show thing?
Stage. Press that scene. All right.
It's in your buttons.
Okay.
So we should definitely look at this one in the debugger, huh? See where things are going. Oh, there's my checkboxes. Can you see them? They're really awful. They're right over here in this little teeny corner. So since I have these giant greater than, less than things, it's throwing everything off. So if yours are better, good job. You're not seeing them?
No, I'm not even getting the option.
Oh, okay. Now see if your bold and italic should work.
No, that's still not there.
I think I'm going to make my pane for check boxes bigger. Can I make it 40? Would it show up then? No, not much. Just too small. What's the matter? Sure. How far?
Up to override.
Okay. Okay.
I'll just. It's just not within, let me, I can switch over to this one right here. After it's on 3, it's not there. I can't look right here. There, it's not on us. That's not right. Did you do all? Yeah. Yeah. It's just an extra character in it. Maybe Oh yeah, you gotta have that. And the hyper.
Checkbox is all good. Okay. We're inheriting here. What's that? I'm not sure. What's it say? The illegal start of the expression. So what's above that? Oh, it's okay. It's not missing a semicolon or anything, is it? Right here. What was that?
Take the space out between the dash and the arrow, just for the fun of it.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. No.
have the space there, but you can't have, those
The
two have to be
band-aid
together.
expression.
If they're not together, it doesn't read.
How's yours doing?
Okay, so what is this supposed to do?
No, it's over there, I've got the bold and italic, and then watch what happens to them. Yeah, mine just told me it's like this, it's close to that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, ain't perfect. Just from the other one.
Take that for ya. Don't have to keep trying to see what it's doing all over the place. Yes, I'm still here. Yes, sir.
Can you take the time to like show me like the flow of like how this class is calling the other class?
Yeah, let's do it. I want to do that. I'm gonna print this for him, and then we'll see if we can get it to work. Now, the last time I did the debugger in NetBeans on this machine, it worked really well, and it didn't go off down into those system functions and get buried. So I don't know if the settings been changed or it's this newer version. Hopefully it'll do that same thing for everybody. Look at the debugger without making you all messed up. All right, so let's try it, because I want to set up the debugger to be running at the very beginning of this thing. So I'm thinking that I think I'm going to do my breakpoint up here where we call our super.getPane. So I just want to set that as a breakpoint. That's really the very first statement in this app, and it should use the button demo, get pane, right? So let's run and debug and see. Hopefully, I'm in a debug project. Now, when I start out, if the debugger will cooperate with us here, notice down at the bottom, I have a bunch of tabs. So I'm going to close some. I have that Javadoc tab that I still haven't been able to find anything on. I think that we might be being blocked. A few other things that I could probably get rid of. I still want to see my output, and I want to see the variables. So when I start out, do you remember that keyword this from Java 1? This means this current class. Well, whenever we're looking at the debugger, it's going to start out showing us everything under this. So if I expand that, we'll see that we inherited a text property already, right? Because we inherited that text property from our button demo just by using that extends statement. So just from extending that button demo, we have that field basically available to us. Now that's just a FYI thing. Let's go ahead and find the step into. There it is. It's these little brown arrows. Step into is F7. So you can either press F7 or click step into. Now when we click step into or F7, the next thing we should see is the beginning of our get pane method. And of course, we're in our button demo because we said we want to run the get pane method in our super class, which was our button demo. So now we're in the code for that button demo. Down at the bottom in your variables, you should be able to see if there are any that are meaningful. I'm going to press F7. Not a whole bunch yet. Now there's our button. Our pane for buttons has been created. See it down here in your variables. If you expand it, notice that it's got a lot of extra stuff that isn't really super helpful to us. But let's see if it's helpful after we add our buttons to that pane. I'm going to F7 for my left button, and then F7 to execute the add for my right button. Now, if I look at my variables, I see I've got those two buttons. Can we see them inside? Oh, we haven't added them to the pane for buttons yet. We got to get there first. So this next line of code is going to add them to that pane. So I'm going to go ahead and execute it with F7 and then see if we can tell anything in our pane for buttons. I can't see anything. I think we need to find like the children property of that pane. So it might be kind of hard to find depending on where it is. Has a lot of properties and methods. But if you look at your buttons, you'll also see that they have some properties and methods associated with them, all of our different classes. Okay, so I'm going to keep pressing F7, change our style. Now we're going to create a new border pane. We should see that show up in our variables, that we have that new pane. And then we're going to add our pane for buttons to the bottom. Create another pane for our text. Add our text property to that. And then add our text pane to our main pane. Now we're creating our action events. Oh, shoot. I jumped over into some system code. It was doing so good. Now I'm going to try to step over. And that got me back. So I think I'm okay. So I'm going to F7 again to set our action event for the right button. And when I execute that, I'll probably have to step over again. I don't want to go through all that system stuff, but you could if you wanted to, because you know it's all just Java code. So if you want to see how those developers that submitted their code and got it approved as part of Java did it, you can. Now I'm going to keep pressing F7 because I want to see this pane get returned. And sure enough, the pane got returned. Now we're back to that first line of code in our checkbox demo. Do you see how that kind of jumped there and ran that code and then came back? Just like a method, just exactly like running a method. It's just that our method was inherited with our button demo class. We ran it just like a method too, didn't we? Now I'm going to keep pressing F7, set up all our fonts, because we're still executing here. And then we can set up our VBox that's going to hold our checkboxes. And I'm going to add my checkboxes here and then add them to our checkbox pane, and then add that to our main pane. And then finally, the event handler for our checkboxes, I will press F5 to step over. Oh, I made it really mad. F7, come on. Render cursor, how's that? Oh, it's F8. I pressed F5, dummy. Okay, so it's going through all of this system stuff now. Try to get it quickly past it. As you can see with our action events, of course, there's a lot of system code associated with that because we're setting up all of this stuff for what to have happen. I'm going to stop mine because I've got buried down in something somewhere. So I think that we saw the good stuff that we wanted to see. So we saw that our checkbox demo just took off and ran that method, our get paid method, in our superclass. So I have a question for you. Could we make this get paid method be the constructor of our button demo so that we didn't even have to call it, but it just would automatically run? If we did that, where would it return that pane to? How would we be able to grab that? Think about that though as an option that our constructor could actually get involved here and call the get paid method. We could do a lot of different things. But this is some really good code here that's showing you how you can just set up that previous class to do some legwork for you and then just call it when you need to. So it can be kind of your utility class.
I think what I don't understand is how the checkbox demo like activates the launch method from button demo.
If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page,
Of what?
into the, if you could scroll to the bottom of the page,
Yeah.
well, the page you were just at.
This one? So whenever we hit our main, right? Yeah, we're trying to do a launch.
For some reason, I thought we didn't have a launch in this one. That's what.
You can do it without it.
Yeah, you should be able to. Let's comment it out. See if it still runs. Looks like it's okay. So now this one doesn't have a main at all, does it?
No, it's just automatically running buttons instead of the check button.
Yeah, so it's finding our main in our button demo.
Well, I think if you right click on the check button demo and choose to run that one instead.
Because it doesn't have a main.
Yeah,
It,
run file.
it's showing it.
Yeah, it should do it.
But it's running button demo, not check button, right? At that point.
Right.
When I'm here and I say run file.
You don't have, yeah,
And
I think it's
check
running.
box.
Right. Because we're extending button demo contains a main, so it can find a main and it can find that application start method. So where is our application start method? That's the one we really need to be concerned with because we're a JavaFX application. I don't have an application start method in this checkbox demo. Do we have it in our button demo? Oh, there it is. So that's the method that's really getting things going, is this start method.
You don't have to have the launch.
Right. If we had a better editor, we wouldn't need the launch at all.
Oh, we don't need the launch, and that needs mine working without.
Is yours working without it? It's really inconsistent. So
Mine
some,
also names my class.
yeah, that'll help. But sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It'll just hang. So the runtime system is looking for that start method because it's a JavaFX application, and it doesn't find it in the base class, so it's looking for it in the parent, in the superclass. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, doing the same thing then. Let's add some radio buttons, and we'll be all done. We'll see you forever. Now remember, radio buttons are the circles, and we can only select one radio button. So we're going to create some interesting ones. What we want is to change the font color of our text based on the radio button that they pick. So let's create a new project. And again, we're going to use some of the code that we've already created. This one will be listing 16_4. In our main class, I'm going to name it Radio Button Demo. Now for our radio button demo, again, we have some different imports because we're going to be concerned about the radio button type imports. We're going to import the geometry insets, JavaFX.scene, .control, .radio button. Scene .control .toggle group. Scene .layout .border pane. Scene .layout .vbox. And finally, scene.paint.color. So you know this one is going to extend our previous one. Checkbox demo. So I need to do some copying. I'm going to go into my previous project and copy both .java files and paste them both into my new project. I'll say refactor, and I'll just keep clicking refactor. Now we're going to have 3 .java class files in our project. And notice how much easier it is to find our classes if they're in their own .java file. I remember kind of earlier they were squishing 2 or 3 of them together in one .java file, and that can make them really hard to find. Now we also need to copy our images. So I'm going to copy my image folder, paste it. This one should be nice and easy. So in our radio button demo, we're going to start out with the @ override. We're going to create a method that returns a border pane called getPane. It's the same way we did previously. And then we're going to say we want to create a pane, and it's going to be filled by super.getPane method. So now we're going to have all of our original stuff, our buttons and our text, and we're going to have our checkboxes because we're inheriting from the checkbox demo. So we should have all of those pieces already in place when we get this pane back. Let's create a VBox, and this one is going to be pane for radio buttons, because again, we like those to be vertical. The new VBox of 20. Now in our pane for radio buttons, we want to set the padding, new insets. And they have 5, 5, 5, 5. Let's do a set style on our pane. They're going down to the next line. It must be a long one. So we're going to do our FX border width of 2 pixels. FX border color of green. I lost my insets import again, so I'm going to add that. Okay, let's create our radio buttons. These controls are just a lot like checkboxes, except that we're going to have some sort of facility that says which ones are, how they're related to each other. With checkboxes, we don't care, there's no relationship. But with radio buttons, there has to be a relationship because we want to make sure that it only allows the user to pick one option. So our RB red is going to be a radio button that says the word red. RB green is going to be a new radio button that says the word green. And then RB blue will say blue. We want to add all of them to our pane. So we had the pane for radio buttons already created. We'll do the get children, add all. And what we want to add is RB red, RB green, and RB blue. Now we're going to add this to the left of our main pane. So where my poor little checkboxes were showing up on the right, these should be teeny over on the left. So we want to relate those radio buttons. So we're going to create a toggle group. And a toggle group is kind of like a radio button group. This defines all of the radio buttons that are in the same group that cannot be clicked on at the same time. So toggle group. We're going to name it group. And this is going to be a new instance of the toggle group. Now we have to set this property in our radio buttons. So we're going to set toggle group to group in each of our radio buttons. And then finally RB blue. That toggle group to that group. So lots of different ways to organize our programs. You might have decided that you wanted to create that toggle group first, and then set the properties for each of the buttons as you were working with them. You might decide you want to do it some other way. Yes, sir?
Is it possible to do like all group dot add all or something like that? Add all of them in one?
Well, not exactly, because it's a property on the radio button, not a property on the toggle group. So the toggle group just exists and we're associating it with it. So yeah, it's kind of a pain because we have to do it to each button. So now that we've got all our buttons set with that information, let's set up our action events. And these ones, again, we're going to be updating our text property based on the event. So for our RB red, we're going to use set on action. And we're going to use a lambda expression. So our set on action, we're going to start out with our E. And then open curly brace. It gets kind of weird there. I'm going to try to press enter so it moves that parenthesis down, and it did insert the closing curly brace, so that looks right. Now I can put my code inside this action event if RB red dot is selected, because remember they might have been unchecking it, might be why it got touched. But if it's selected, I'm going to use the set fill on the text property to set its color to red. So our first action event, we're going to set up our other ones in the same format. RB green dot set on action event E. And then if RB green is selected, we're going to update our text to set its fill color to color.green. So our last one is going to be for our blue, RB blue, set on action. Press enter there, try to get it to go down. Now in our if statement, if RB blue dot is selected, then we can update our text by setting its fill to the color blue.
You have to have an else statement for like if nothing selected or automatically go back to that.
Do I?
Do you have to have an else statement for like nothing selected? Or will it automatically go back to?
No, it'll just fall through if there's nothing selected. So when you click on that radio button, say you click on your RB blue, it's going to run this action event. If you were clicking to select it, it'll change the color. But if you were clicking on RB green and RB blue got selected just because it was unclicked, then it's going to actually run both of them, if that makes sense. So it'll only do the one that was just selected. But both of them will have their action events run because they were selected. Let's put something in for that. Do we have enough room? We do. I want to put in like just a debugging thing. Let's just write action event for blue. And then I want to copy that. Because you're going to see these run a lot more often than the checkbox ones, because checkbox ones only run if we actually touch them. But radio buttons can be touched because they're being unselected. I'm going to put that in for each of them. And then I'll just say I'm running my action event, my red. We'll just do some old school debugging and see if 2 come out every time we click on one. Okay, we're done, but we need to return that pane. So after that final lambda expression is done, let's return our pane. It should be all built now. I'm going to go ahead and comment out my main. So now if you look at this one, notice kind of like the other, it doesn't really have any other methods. It doesn't have a main, doesn't have anything. It's just all dependent upon the parents. Does it work? I've lost something. So I've got my button demo stuff. Where are we inheriting from? Checkbox demo, that should be right.
Did you do a launch
Of this one? No, do you think I need to?
And we'll launch the previous version. It's not updated and updated. You have to have the launch mark.
Okay, let's do it. In here, you think? Ah. Now, when I first started, my radio buttons didn't look too bad, but then when I maximize, it all goes to you know where. So I'd have a lot of design work to do on this one. But I want to try something, so I'm going to try red. I changed it red. Green. Now, what I want to look at is my console messages. I'm not seeing an action event for both of them when I click and unclick. I'm only seeing the one that's actually clicked. Yeah. So we may not need those if statements in there at all. We might just be able to change the color because they're acting like they behave kind of like they do in some other languages. So maybe they don't. Just did it what you wanted it to do because that looks like that's okay. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's actually running all those action events. Now, why did you say to put the launch in? What were you seeing?
Because it was reading the backlog rather than updating for the
Which was reading the last.
one.
Okay, good. Thank you. That helped a lot. All right. So now we've created a big chain, basically, of building of things. But what they want you to think about is if you work, say you work for your company, you're starting a new application development, and they want all of the forms to kind of have a consistent look and feel, right? We like that. We like that with Windows. We're used to things being in a certain area. So you could create that base class, that super class, with kind of like your form flow overall, and then everybody could just inherit that, and they would already have that basic information already pre-built for them for the form, and then they could add the individual pieces on. We could even go further, you know, maybe the accounts payable department wants this other thing on top of the base form, and we could maybe have departmental forms too that are templates that we use. So it's kind of a way for us to create a template or the basics of a form that's already started. Questions about it? How do you feel? Do you need to do some more debugging?
Mine's not working.
What's wrong with it? Let's fix it. I could get 'em up, but- Now, the rest of you, if yours is working, while we get these fixed up, yeah, work on your projects that are due. This next one, I don't want to do it together, but it's going to be real similar to one of your assignments. In this next one, they add a text box where you can type in the message. That's going to be the text that's used to your display in the middle. And then you can do the left and right buttons and change things with your radio buttons. So what I'd like for you guys to do, if yours is working now, go on and work on this text field demo so you get an opportunity to type in, to put in some input, because we've kind of skipped that. And let's see if we can get that one working while we get everybody else going with this previous one. You said the imports. There we go. Oh, okay. So where is it?
Sure, I don't see any pictures of the other two.
So that's why I have these, if center that is selected, and set of false.
So where is your?
There's a problem that takes care of that. So that's what
Oh, yes.
That's why it's able to start, because it's trying to.
here. So HBox, blah, 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 and I'm have a text property, and I just go with this.
It's still not showing.
Did you
And
do
then I
that
put
one?
it in a label,
Go back.
that way I could, set input there. And then this is just me putting it there. And then I put the action on it, and then you change the text field here is actually the first one. That's the one that's pretty quick, right? And then it has a property called set column count. And then when I get that, then you can put your guys first symbol. Because this, you want to get this text, right? From the user, but then that return string. Of course, I don't do any error checking, so I can detect an F, I'm sure.
There is. What did you say? Crazy.
Yeah. Pane dot set left. Did I mess you up? Go back up here.
Oh, I'm done.
Okay.
I want to see this.
There we go. Is that good?
I wish I could. I wish I
Well, red word. Oh, yeah, that's. Because we're only at
65. Yeah, because there's the text.
That's good.
It's still not working now. It was just running like
So you were fixing my house. So let's do
That's true. I know. I thought everybody was like, everybody said they said. Oh, there's.
Because you can change from 21 to this. I need to go back and change those languages just because that's what they're afraid.
Is there an image font?
You just have to worry about.
It's not even hard to get the system out of my. Well, I guess not.
I should try.
So nice. For instance, okay, guys, how did you do this? So it's actually done so good. The red one is the only one that works.
Yeah. Yeah. The way she's got it done, that's,
Do what?
Are they all added to the red one?
that's not how we were going before.
Yeah, it all looks good.
You know,
I don't use those.
I thought I would have waited.
Right?
So this is the first time. Oh, you don't know I did this at all.
Yeah,
Well, it's just one of those things.
It's only one time.
It's one of my.
Oh, well,
Yeah, I
well,
already-
that was the way to get it. Good.
No, it's about 64.
Which image where did you create?
I think your way is actually fine.
You mean that? Yeah.
I kind of like your way, because sometimes I get to it, but sometimes I don't.
Okay, wait, so. More efficient too.
I feel like this is a more.
Yeah,
There's a way for you can see it. And that was just now, that's the season going. And then it seems a bit this. It's a different thing, but it should be. You should be able to create one.
There it is.
I think it's all about.
Yeah, that's the moment.
She might reword it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be it.
We're not at the end yet.
I didn't know if they were about to see Gotcha.
And then you type it or whatever.
Only RV resin seminar action.
Right.
Really?
Okay.
Okay.
I thought it was all good. Good job, you guys. How's yours?
Thank you.
Did you do it?
I can try.
Do you want me to scroll down?
Well, it gets to aim for
Well, that's the thing.
radio button set style, and it says.
Capital F for four for that.
Oh, it's just a style.
So many.
I looked at that for 6 months.
He's been going crazy.
I have no idea.
Is there a dot in between?
Yeah, it's like 2 o'clock.
You should be a dot.
Especially during. I can't do that.
When you get older.
It's the kids.
Okay.
It's got some big chance.
I never could until recently.
Trying to do that.
I just want to draw. Do you want to draw works for the. That should be okay.
I usually work at night. Oh, sometimes 12:30. Or 8:30.
See if this is right.
No, but you don't want to run like.
Hang on. Can you hear it? Okay, you know where that's going, right? We are the champions. We got a champion in here. So I had to give him the Queen song just a little bit here, but I wasn't right. This is Jim, and I'm going to open it so that we can put it on him and you guys can, yeah, clap and everything. This is his Skills USA medal for districts. And like I told him, this one is a small one because they start out little and then they get bigger as you go. So give him a hand. Congratulations for great job. Can't wait for him to go to state and get a little bit bigger of a one. And then we won't get to embarrass him then because he'll probably get it while he's there, but we can try. So, okay, thank you for that. Yes, sir. Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's very nice.
So what do you have to do on that?
That was at C# program for.
Yeah.
No, one of them's just now taking sharp. The other one took sharp too.
Now, make sure you keep going through that chapter, looking at some of those projects, because some of them will help you a lot. We'll do one more next time, but mostly we'll have lab time.
Are we gonna do the tic-tac-toe?
That's what you'll do in your lab time. I want you guys to do that together, so we'll split up into our
Great
groups.
question. You said there were images in from the book. Where are they at?
They are in Canvas on
they're in
our, but I had them in a bad place because they're on last week's module. I need to put them someplace better. I wish Canvas had some sort of shared area. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. What you need, Ken? What did you need? So you split up into yeah, that's really the main. So they show you how to do it, but it's different, so you have to do it yourself. So yeah, find a sign. That's all you'll need, and then just submit it on that assignment and scan it.
Thank you.
This is a checkbox.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll enter it. Must be missing the input for the checkbox.
Well, it didn't do that before.
Your mouse might have, your cursor could have been like in a different place. Now this one's different because it's not. It's not a class. So let's take a look at
I
it.
need to have my son link my display case for my.
Cool. How much other stuff do you get?
No,
It's missing the arms,
with
right
my
there looking at it.
certificates and stuff like that. We'll see how it goes.
You're getting a big one because you're gonna keep getting more bills.
That's the thing.
And we're just gonna take his code and we make it be like Java syntax. That's how I felt when I was thinking, I think that's an 8. Wait, no, it's an X. What am I?
One super good question I got last. It's just.
So is this, should this one be checked bold instead of checked box?
And you got it.
Oh, okay.
Wait a minute.
Yes, do that outside of that.
Get some rest.
Go home, relax, eat lunch. Drink a beer.
What kind of beer do you like?
The outside.
All kinds of beer. I got some IPA right now. A lot of people hate IPA.
I never had it.
Bites.
Really?
It's like a skunky taste.
Oh. Smell?
Sometimes it's supposed to be a brew. I'm in a board or something like
So
that.
on this one, since we're doing this, we landed.
But animals is
Let's bring that one up, because I can't do them without looking at it.
A pale ale.
You know.
Good, it should be.
I don't drink.
That's good. Because sometimes I just go home and I'll have a beer and I'll be like, well, I don't really want to do anything. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the right stuff?
Both bracelets. Semi.
Oh, there it is, yeah. Got it?
I don't see any more.
All right, see if it'll work.
When you get a chance, I have a question
Okay,
on my thing I need to show you.